Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to Telling Time. Today, I'm back with another special and personal review of my Rolex Datejust 34 watch. This is an awesome piece that holds a dear place in my heart and my collection. I don't get to do these personal reviews so often, so if you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoy the content. But without further ado, let's begin. The story of the Rolex Oyster line of watches dates back to the 1920s with Rolex's creation of the first waterproof and dustproof hermetically sealed wristwatch, aptly named the Oyster. The 1926 Rolex Oyster watch was a classic icon with its cushion case, coin edge bezel and intricate dial. In 1927, young English swimmer Mercedes Gletzi swam the English Channel with the Rolex Oyster on her wrist, and thus cementing its claim to the waterproofness and Rolex's reputation as makers of serious water-resistant watches. In 1931, Rolex released its Perpetual movement, which was one of the world's first automatic self-winding movements at the time, with a perpetual rotor, and from then on, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual was born. Since 1931, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual has undergone many iterations and has branched off into many models in the Rolex family, but it all began with this watch. Fast forward to 2020, the latest generation of Rolex Oyster Perpetual collection presents itself as the purest expression of Rolex's manufacturing spirit and universal classic style. As always with reviews of my personal collection that I like to do on this channel, I like to share the story that was attached to the watch. I obtained this watch in 2024 as a wedding gift from my mother-in-law, and if you've seen my video on my Cartier Santos medium, you will know that at the time of my wedding, I was thinking of which watch I would like to wear on the big day. Now, I did wear my Cartier Santos, but I also had the pleasure of wearing this 34mm Oyster Perpetual at my wedding ceremony, making it that much more special to me. And the reason that I chose this watch was manifold. As a watch enthusiast, I loved the idea of holding an heirloom watch, one that had the build quality to be able to pass down to my children one day. And when you think of heirloom watches, the one that keeps coming up in conversation would be Rolex. And as a fun fact, my parents-in-law actually owned a pair of Rolex Datejust from the 1990s, and I loved the idea of inheriting them as wedding gifts, but my mother-in-law insisted that the wedding gift be a new gift due to wedding traditions. So I ended up choosing the Rolex Oyster Perpetual not only because it was a classic watch and I knew that it would go well with my wedding attire, but also because it had the perfect sizing, the 34mm for me and the 31mm for my wife. When I was trying this watch on with my local AD, I was debating heavily between the 34mm and the 36mm versions. But in the end, I went with the 34mm because I think it looks a bit more classic with the all single baton markers as opposed to the double batons on the 36mm, and I thought that the 34mm size would make a very unique addition to my personal collection. With this moderate sizing, I'm not afraid to wear in this watch. I took it to my honeymoon and had an amazing time with it. So this watch is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 34 Blue Dial reference number 124200, released in 2020. The watch is well proportioned, measuring in at 34mm wide and 40mm from lug to lug, with a thickness of 12mm. It has a sunburst blue dial with a flat sapphire crystal. It also has stick markers all around except for the Rolex crown logo at the 12. And if you look carefully at the minutes track, you'll see Roman numerals at the marker locations. As with any Rolex model, it has the repeated Rolex engraving on the chapter ring and the hidden secret of the etched Rolex crown on the crystal, which I unfortunately can't pick up on this camera. You have a fully polished, smooth bezel and brush lugs to match the brush Oyster bracelet. The entire case is machined from Rolex's proprietary Oyster steel, an in-house form of 904L stainless steel. Onto the back, we have a surprisingly sterile screw-down case back, which I think is a bit of a Rolex trademark at this point. And you have a small crown stamped with the Rolex logo. The lug width on the watch is 18mm and tapering down to 16 at the foldover class. One of the interesting things on the newer Oyster Perpetual models is that the class actually has what looks like a foldover lock that you'd find on dive watches, but it isn't a foldover. It's a machine piece that actually flexes and accentuates the class opening system. The last thing about the bracelet is the Rolex Easy Link system, which allows you to pull out a link's worth of bracelet. Powering this OP34 is Rolex's in-house perpetual movement caliber 2232, which is regulated to plus or minus 2 seconds per day, and the watch is rated to 100 meters of water resistant, which is appropriate to its origins. For the pros of this watch, I have to first mention the quality. If you get to experience this watch in person, you can feel the difference in finishing, precision, quality control, and attention to detail. Rolex watches are constructed in such a way that even the smaller models like this OP34 or 31mm watches feel so robust and dependable. On the wrist, it feels like a proper accessory and companion. The second pro for me, which might be a con for others, is the sizing. At 34mm, I don't feel like it wears too small, and I think it adds a nice variety to my collection. It also gives me a piece that has a vintage feel and something that can be worn for dressier occasions. Third one that might tick some people off is the brand significance. As I mentioned before, I wanted this to be a Rolex piece that my kids would come to know, and a bit of an heirloom in the family. In my crazy mind, a Rolex is one of the best watches to do this. As for the cons of the watch, firstly is the crown. Now, maybe because of my large man hands, I do find that the crown in this watch is a bit hard to operate because it's so small. When I need to turn it, I can barely get my fingers on it, and so, if you have a larger build, you might want to look to the 36 or 41mm sizes of watch instead. Secondly is also related to the size, but it's the 18mm lug width. This is just my personal preference, but I don't like watches with 18mm lug widths. On the bracelet, this watch looks absolutely perfect because the lug width is correctly proportioned to the watch, but I've tried watches with 18mm NATO and leather straps before, and I just find them too dainty for me. But I'm lucky with this one because Rolex is one of the best in the business at making Oyster bracelets, and I can't really see myself taking this watch off the bracelet. So that brings us to the end of my review on my Rolex Oyster Perpetual 34. Will I be successful in creating an heirloom out of this watch? I guess only time will tell. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I hope that you guys can also start or continue on your own watch collecting journeys and create your own stories to tell. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.